So what's going on in Bangladesh right now?
What's going on in Bangladesh right now is there's an update to I shared some messages with like you guys and you made a post out of it. Now we're past that. The government has fallen. The army has taken control temporarily, and they are and the leaders of the student movement and the army, they announced recently that they're gonna construct an interim government, not the army, an interim government which is not the army, a civilian interim government. And the advisor for that government is going to be Nobel laureate Dr. Yunus, who is a like yeah, who's a, as far as I can tell, he's a decent man. So I think that's good news that at least we're not falling to Islamic fundamentalists right away. But it's from where I'm standing, that is our most likely future. But I really hope I'm wrong. I have some very optimistic friends who think that won't happen. We won't let that happen. I hope they're right.
What is his name? The guy's name?
Dr. Muhammad Yunus.
Muhammad Yunus?
Yeah.
And you're saying that he's secular in a way, like
Yeah, no, he's secular. As far as I know, he doesn't have any affiliations with any religious parties.
mhm.
He was deeply disliked by the party that just left, the Awami League, and I'm not sure what that was about. I was very young when they started disliking Yunus. I was very young, so I did not follow politics very well back then, so I'm not sure.
Okay. So yeah, I'm reading about Yunus right now. He seems legit. I mean, he
He
seems
seems legit, yeah.
he's
So
got
that's good
like
news.
yeah,
Yeah.
at least they're maybe even if they're just showing like something, even if it's not going to be true, at least they're
Yeah.
showing something that, is acceptable, I guess, in a way.
Yeah. But that is at the very high level, right? At the grassroots level, we've already seen like Hindu homes burned, Hindu temples burned, and then like people affiliated with the former ruling party killed brutally. And I'm very critical of the former ruling party as well, because, like I said, they were very undemocratic. They were arresting people, they were killing people left and right. Very undemocratic party. But that is what we're trying to reform, right? We were trying to reform those kinds of savage, undemocratic, that kind of savage behavior. Once they've fallen, why are we resorting to that kind of savage, undemocratic behavior for their members? Like, shouldn't these people, you can hate those people, you can say these people belonged to they were supporters of the fascist regime, whatever they were, then take them to court. I've seen a video of them, of like a mob kicking a person, a naked man. A man is naked and he's tied to like a post, and people are kicking him, and he's already dead. So that is like a such a visceral image in my mind, and that happened on day one of the government falling. So
How
it's a
how long was
very
it? How long was it
uh,
ago? Like how long was it
oh, the
ago?
government fell the day before yesterday. The government fell
My
the day
God.
before yesterday. All of this was, yeah, yesterday.
And it all
And
started because of the student riots. Like this was the beginning. This was
yeah,
the
so it
catalyst.
was like a series of escalations. So the student riots were originally about quotas in government jobs, like reserving certain percentages for certain groups. And people were upset because 30%, 30% of government jobs were reserved for the descendants of those who fought in the 1971 Liberation War. And not just their children, like their grandchildren could get it, like further generations could get it. And people were upset because 30% of government jobs in a poor country where government jobs are one of the only, like very few jobs where you can like expect stability and decent earnings, you're reserving 30% for a certain group. So people were upset about that. And then when things took a turn is, I would say, when the at the start of this like movement, the 2024 quota movement, Uh, there was a student wing of the ruling party called Bangladesh Chhatra League, BCL. BCL indiscriminately with like bamboo sticks. They beat students like to disperse protests. Now, here's the thing. People expect police to disperse protests with like tear gas, rubber bullets. Nobody likes that either. Batons. Nobody likes that. But people accept that because police is an established law enforcement body. But the ruling party student wing who dispersed those protests and like they beat men, women, and everybody, like people didn't accept that. Of course they didn't expect that. I didn't like accept that. No one would accept that kind of behavior. One civilian beating another civilian in the name of dispersing a protest. That's when things started taking a turn. That's when things started being like, no, we're done with this regime. Before that, it was just about the job quotas. But then when they beat like, I think it was like 200 students or something, that's when the movement took a turn and people started, like more people started joining in, uh, and more people started saying this, we need to end this.
They said that it wasn't just beating 200 children students, it was killing 200 students. That's
Oh,
what.
that no, the first day was beating. The first day was beating, and then I think 5 or 6 people died from the beating in the hospitals, which is also horrible. And like they also people were injured and they went to Dhaka Medical College Hospital, and the BCL people they entered the hospital to beat people inside the hospital. You can't do that. You cannot do that.
The
So like
BCL?
that's yeah,
What's
that's
the?
the student wing of the ruling party.
Oh, okay, okay. That's
Yeah, so yeah, that's the abbreviation. And so that was like the day one of things taking a slight turn. And then for the next like week and a half, something like that, uh, like more police started getting involved, and police and BCL were beating ordinary students side by side. So
oh my
that's
God.
not, yeah. And like the government this whole time was saying that like the police is dispersing protests so hard, the police is shooting bullets at people so hard because some of these protesters are Jamaat Shibir insurgents, and they were they burned down like a data center, and they broke metro station, a subway station. They broke down our like government national TV station. So there is still no actual consensus on who did that, if ordinary students did that or Jamaat Shibir did that. The leaders of the student movement said we did not do it. So the government took that to argue, okay, if you did not do it, if students did not do it, that means Jamaat Shibir did it. And that means that we need to punish these terrorists. And now here's the thing. Again, in a democratic nation, if you want to punish people who are like causing chaos, you take them to court. You don't shoot at a crowd. And
Hmm.
like, yeah. And so then like hundreds of people died from the shooting at the crowd. And so, yeah, that's when things really started turning, and people started more and more people started demanding that that Sheikh Hasina should step down. So they just
So
made the
yeah,
government made one bad move after another.
so yeah, I'm reading a little bit about the situation here, and I think it's important to understand that Sheikh Hasina, he's the daughter of like
Sheikh Mujib,
yeah, his name like
the
in
father of the nation. Yeah,
exactly, he's called the father of the nation.
yeah,
She actually when she was younger, she defeated, like she was one of the symbols of the revolution for
yeah,
democracy
yeah.
in Bangladesh. So
Yes.
when she came back to power in 2009, she was uh, she was jailed, right? No,
Hmm.
she wasn't jailed.
She
She was
was jailed for
accused,
a while. She was jailed for a while under corruption charges before she came to power. She was jailed for a little while.
and
Yeah.
then she was accused of jailing people who are her political rivals.
Yes.
And yesterday she fled by a helicopter to India.
Yeah. She
Wow.
fled to India, yeah, and she was trying to seek asylum in the UK, but I just read that that got rejected. So, Yeah, that's where we are. And that's, yeah, you're right about Sheikh Hasina when when her father and her whole family were killed, and when she became prime minister of the country for the first time around, and even in the 2009 election when she came to power, there was hope and there was a lot of appreciation for her as like a secular, democratic, liberal leader, in contrast to the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, BNP, who's our main opposition, who are affiliated with Jamaat Shibir. So they're the more right wing, the more like Islamic conservative party. Hasina's party was the more left wing, the more like liberal, progressive, secular party when they started out. But it's important to note, like in the past 15 years that she was in power, a lot changed. Like those secular democratic values, they started disappearing more and more. Uh, and also, like, religion aside, like it's a poor country. And at the end of the day, in a poor country, what people care about is like the cost of living and whether they have jobs or not, whether they're earning enough at their jobs.
Sure.
And all of those things were going wrong. And at the same time, she and her ruling party uh, invested in like some dumb shit, like putting up statues of Sheikh Mujib, the father of the nation, Sheikh Hasina's father, putting up large statues of
Mm.
her father in like big main roads of the country, of several cities in the country, and that stuff is paid with taxpayer money. In a poor country, when you do that kind of stuff, people don't like it.
Yeah,
Understandably so.
I
Yeah,
think so. Yeah, especially if it's
yeah,
something that's like eye-popping. Like it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
at least do it like in a more discreet way. Maybe just
yeah,
take a statue, put it in your house. I don't know,
yeah,
build a villa in under like build a bat cave. Just don't
yeah.
do like
Don't flaunt it. Yeah, don't flaunt it.
exactly.
Yeah.
At least if you're corrupt, do it smartly. So I guess that you're saying that she's
That's the thing. I think that you've gotten to a very good point. Because politicians, Bangladesh is a very new country. And since the birth of this nation, every ruling party that has ruled over us has been corrupt in some way or another. They've all been fucking corrupt, okay? But the reason Sheikh Hasina's this 15-year run is special is because they were in power for 15 straight years. So they just got arrogant after a point, I think. Because initially they were corrupt in very discreet ways too. But as more time went by, it started to get more and more public. They started to get more and more arrogant. And I feel like they had this attitude of nobody can touch us. Nobody can touch us. And they were like basically every important sector of the country were their people, like whether it's the army, the police, the like banking sector, like private corporations, the heads of private corporations, big private corporations, whatever you wanna, whatever you can imagine, even like religious institutions, madrasas, mosques. That's why they built like 500 new mosques to appease like
wow.
religious conservatives so that they would side with Awami League as well. So they basically, every important element in a nation were their people. So they thought, okay, everywhere is our people, nobody can touch us.
Okay,
So
so
they
if
got
I'll
arrogant.
So if I ask you, I'll play devil's advocate a little bit because I come
Mhm.
from Israel and we also have a lot of people problem with our government.
Yeah,
You're saying 15 years she's been in power. Pretty much the same thing with Bibi Netanyahu. He's been in power for so long. He's been
exactly. So
very
Netanyahu's
arrogant.
also gotten arrogant.
He's
He's
very
lost his
arrogant.
mind. Yeah,
He completely, yeah. I also say
yeah,
as a lefty, I said that
yeah,
in his previous years he was a little less aggressive and a little less arrogant, and now he's just become a freaking dictator. And he just even his whole cabinet is full of crazy shit people from all sides, and it's
yeah.
just become like a shit show. So before the October 7 happened, we had people in the streets, me included, my family included, you know, my sister, my brothers, my dad, we were all not rioting, but, you know, protesting in the streets to get the government out, because they were trying to do, like, they were trying to change the judicial way of Israel and be a dictatorship in a way. And now October 7 happened and everything, but we still have people who are, first of all, they're still being assholes in the government. It didn't change just because there's problems. It didn't change. And second of all, we still have people, me included, still saying get them get them the fuck out of the government. So how should you do it? Because we have tried time and time again to get them to pay for their sins, to pay for their arrogance, to pay for them for their corruption, and time after time they have been back at it. Just one example: we have one guy who leave it aside that he's a very religious, Jew. He's very corrupt. He was so corrupt he stole from the Israeli money, from the public's money. He went to jail. He came back after jail. He served again. He stole money again, and now he's back in the cabinet. So I'm asking myself, as a person who lives in a democracy, in a democratic country, I see that. How else do you topple a government who is that corrupt? And maybe that's the way. I'm not saying that's the way. I'm just saying, as a guy who is so frustrated, I get it. I get those people riding in the streets. Maybe it's justified. Maybe it's the way to do it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, yeah, you've asked a very good question, and I do not know the answer to it. I really wish I knew the answer to it. And in many ways, you're right. Maybe this is the way. And I think in some ways, students have proven that this is kind of the only way you could, like a party like the Bangladesh Awami League in a country like Bangladesh. Where, oh, by the way, one of the biggest things they did in these 15 years was they passed something called the Digital Security Act. DSA. It is basically, it sounds like a good thing. It is not. It is basically like basically a bill that allows the government, whoever the ruling party is, to prosecute journalists, reporters, writers, bloggers, even people with, like, ordinary people for their social media posts, if like it's not sufficiently backed up. And you know what that means, right? When you open up laws like that, what you're really trying to do is cut down on free speech. What you're really trying to do is cut down on criticism of the ruling party. So that's one of the biggest things they did. And that is basically how they infiltrated all sectors too. Like, they passed laws like that, or they used their, like, BCL type goons to, like, infiltrate different sectors, and then it became this, like, mammoth organization, like, stretched out all over the country. And when it's like that strong, when a fascist government is that strong, I think, yeah, the only way to get them down is like a mass uprising by the people. At least that's the only way we know, right? That's the only way we know how. There's no straightforward way. You can't take them to court. The court is their people. You can't expect the army to come in. The army's their people. You can't expect the press to get there. The press has been like shut down by them with these, like, Digital Security Act type things. The press can't speak freely. So the only way is something like that. But then where we went wrong, I think, and I hope I'm wrong. Again, I keep saying I hope I'm wrong. I hope my optimistic friends are right. We should have, a revolution is great, but you have to think one step ahead of the revolution too, about what happens right after. Like, you're thinking about bringing down Netanyahu right now, which would be wonderful for Israel and for, and for Gaza and for, like, a lot of the Middle East, because he's gone crazy. Like, but if he gets down, you guys should have a plan about who comes in next. What if the next party that comes in is even more right wing? Is even more conservative, is even more fascist. Like, because that's the risk with Bangladesh right now. Hasina and her party were horrible, but what if people take advantage of this revolution and this power vacuum, and like a more right wing, a more ultra conservative Islamo-fascist party comes in? because then we haven't achieved anything. We're replacing one oppressor with another oppressor and a much worse oppressor. We would be replacing one oppressor with a much worse oppressor. So I really hope that doesn't happen to this country or to anyone, anywhere. Lots of countries are struggling right now. I know Venezuela is struggling with Maduro.
Yeah.
Uh, so just it's the world has gone to shit.
So maybe what they're saying is that if they're going to take Muhammad Yunus and people from both sides, secular and religious people in Bangladesh, are going to put their trust in him and say it
Mhm.
publicly. I mean, say it publicly and not just say, in their house, yeah, ma'am, mom, dad, I think I'll trust Yunus. No, 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 no. You need to say it loud. You need to say it clear. You need to, again, I'm not saying he is the right choice. I'm saying if you think that he is the right choice, you need to speak up. If you think someone else is the right choice, you need to speak up.
Yeah.
Because in the end, right now, there's a situation where, as I see it, both sides are not a good choice
Hmm.
from what it looks like. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
he doesn't look, like a good choice. She ran away. Um,
Hmm.
the people who are trying to take over, not a real, not a real choice. So I think that we need to show support and the echo, like you're saying, there's a vacuum right now. There's a echo chamber. We need to fill that echo chamber with voices of support, not negativity, because it's okay. Everybody's negative. Everything is bad right now. But if you don't show a glimmer of hope and people will cling to that hope and say, I know what I need to say. I know who I need to, show my gratitude or show that I'm with him. So yeah, they won't go with you. And so I think that's important right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree. And I personally do think Yunus is the right choice in this moment. Because, like, yeah, people across the board seem to like him, like conservatives, liberals, everybody seems to like him. That is good. That is a very good thing. Um, so my worry is that here's my is this revolution was so big because like of the people that they killed. They killed people, they imposed a curfew, they like imposed an internet shutdown for almost a full week, and we all suffered. And so everyone was like, just like the anger was like bubbling up to here. But now what I'm seeing is a lot of these people are tapering down. And I understand people get tired, like revolution is tiring, like constantly talking about political shit is tiring. A lot of these people now, when like yesterday, when those Hindu homes burned down, when like yeah, when minorities were attacked, a lot of those same people who were very vocal about step down Hasina, they're not as vocal about the rise of like these kinds of acts of communal violence that we saw yesterday. And we saw like I can't even like the kinds of videos I saw, I can't sleep at night. So that is, I think, where we might go wrong is if like because I was talking to a friend the other day and we basically divided Bangladesh into or the people of this revolution into four groups. So group one is like leftist, liberal, progressive, secular people who are not stopping. They don't stop ever. These people are always political. These people are always talking about, yeah, we have to reform the country, we have to be better, we have to be better, we have to be better. Those are those were some of the people at the forefront of the revolution, and like they're still going strong, they're still going loud. So that's group one. Group two is like liberal, privileged people who don't normally talk about politics, but they talked because things got so bad, because the anger bubbled up to here. They talked for this revolution, but they don't care about politics in general. So that group is tapering down. And then there's the biggest group, which is like lower middle class to upper middle class, or I would even say low income to middle class, that group which like their concerns are about their bellies. Their concerns are very basic human concerns about like I need to like the cost of living, I need to live, I need to feed my kids. Those people, they're yeah. So they're like ordinary people. They don't have an opinion on like Islamicism or secularism as much. Like most of them are Muslims, they're practicing Muslims, but they don't like think very strongly either way. They're not extremists and they're not like
Sure,
ultra liberal.
for
And
sure.
then there's the third group, which is the insurgents, which is the Islamic fundamentalists. They're the ones doing like a lot of the atrocities, committing a lot of the atrocities that we were talking
You
about.
mean the fourth group?
The fourth group, the fourth group. So these are the four groups. But the first three groups I talked about, they're much larger. Like the fourth group, which is like the people that we are trying to prevent from becoming dominant, they're a very small group, but they're able to very easily influence the third group, the biggest group, the people who are low income and they care about their bellies. Because like obviously, like if you're poor and you're uneducated and you don't understand the nuances of like geopolitics and what happens when Islamic fundamentalists come into power, what happens to women's rights, what happens to minority rights, if you don't like know much about that, it's very easy to influence you by saying, yeah, Hindus are bad. You need to stand with like us. We are your Muslim like brothers. Or yeah, like yeah, women need to stay in their homes. You need to like stay with us so that we can control women. Or we will give you more jobs. We will like God will give you more jobs if you stand with us. Like God will be on your side. That kind of thing. So that's what we need to prevent. And in order for that to happen, I think the first two groups and the first three groups basically, we we basically can't let our guard down. We have to be alert and we have to like be at like we have to sleep with one eye out for the dangers of Islamic fundamentalism. And we're not doing that right now. A lot of us are already letting our guard down. A lot of us are already like, yeah, Hasina's gone. I'm gonna go back to posting like my regular the usual programming. We're gonna talk about yeah, boys, or we're gonna talk about like daily life. And that is okay. Like we are humans. We like social media is supposed to be about your daily life.
Of
But
course.
when the country's in a power vacuum, when like yeah, this is a very delicate time and I
I
think
think,
we're
yeah,
making a mistake by letting our guard down.
maybe, like you're saying, maybe the idea of the revolution is not a bad thing on its own, but I think that what's being done right now is the hijacking from the
Hmm.
fourth group. And so I
Yes.
think what's supposed to happen is to hijack back. I think what's
Yeah.
supposed to be is that because you don't want to see another Iran. You don't want to see
Mm-mm.
another Islamic revolution like what happened there. You don't want to see another Pakistan. You don't want to see what's going on. And so I think this is what you should say. Like, like word by word, phrase by phrase, we don't want another Iran. We don't want another Pakistan. We want a secular, uh, 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 um, economically driven Bangladesh, economically
Hmm.
driven. You don't want it religious. You don't want it, you want it to be a free economic country. And I'm not saying it in a left-wing kind of way, Maduro style, Venezuela. I'm saying it in a way of you want to live and like the third group wants to feed their belly. And so if they want to feed their belly, tell you should tell them publicly on social media what will feed your belly, religion or money. And this
Yeah.
is the critical thing. You need to hijack it back and take away
Mm.
the religious element and tell them religion is fine, it's okay, be religious. Your religion is not under attack, no matter what other people say. What is under
Yeah.
attack is your democratic vote, is your democratic way of life, because you're going to suffer if you're going to be under a regime who only sees religion as a primary goal, like the alpha and the omega. And so you
Hmm.
want to have something better than this. And I think
You're also
and I
right.
think you have to hijack the social conversation that's going on right now. Because, and I'm not saying, I think you should not even mention religion. I think you should not even
You're
mention what you're
right.
talking about, because then people will try and twist your words and twist other people's words. And all you need to do is just focus, laser focus on what is important right now. You want this revolution? Go at it. Go forward. Don't go back. Don't stop. It's okay. Go
Mhm.
ahead. But like you said, people said we wanted her out. Great. We wanted her out. She's out. Now what do we do? Do we go out
Mhm.
to violence? Do we go out to violent rhetoric, to killing
Yeah.
people? No, that's exactly why we took her out. So
Mhm.
this is also something that you need to say, like Bangladeshi people needs to say. We took her out because of the violence. We took her out because of the
Yes.
anti-democratic situation. This is what needs to be changed.
Mhm.
If we want something different, we need to do something different. We cannot act as being act upon us. So this is also like the discussion about here in Israel. Should we be treating the Hamas terrorists as horrible as they treat us? And I'm saying no, because even if they are animals in their how they treat people, their own people, how they do stuff, if we will go down to their level, what is making us better out of them? Are we better than them?
Absolutely.
Are we better than
Absolutely. Yeah.
their actions? We are not good or bad people. Our actions are good or bad, and we are our actions in a form of way.
Mhm.
So if we want to have a change, there is a way of doing so that is not going to lead the country into shambles,
Mhm.
into a void. If we want to live there together, we need to do it together. And so also we need to spread the word. We need to say it that we are in this shit together. This is a one boat kind of situation. If we fight each other on this boat will sink. If we paddle together, this boat will float. This boat will continue to a better place.
My God, you should come be our new prime minister. No, but you're absolutely right. And I think that is the strategy that we, all of us, should be employing, and we're not doing it enough because the threat of religious fundamentalism is so terrifying. Those of us who understand that threat, we're battling that threat directly. But you're right. Instead of like talking about like religion and the like religious extremism directly, because that can be misconstrued, that can be like taken apart. What needs to happen is like influence the people who matter the most, that third group, that biggest group, and like you tell them honestly, like these people are not going to feed your belly, because that's true. They don't. They were like the Bangladesh Nationalist Party and Jamaat Islami. They were in power before. They were in power before. The country was in shambles. The country was in shambles, and like yeah, like we had like power outages every single day. We because they were corrupt. They were like looting from the people. They were looting from the taxpayers, and we had like terrorist activities everywhere. So all of that was going on in their power. And yeah, I think you're right. I think that's what we need to highlight, that like these people are not going to feed your belly. They're not going to meet your needs. They're going to like spin you nice little stories about God and religion and heaven. And you're allowed to believe that. You're allowed to believe whatever you want, but just understand something. They're not going to be there for you in the thing that matters the most for you is your own well-being, the like whether you're putting food on the table. They're not going to be there for you for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If they already were in power and um, they showed their true face when that
Yeah.
happened,
Yeah.
why would people put their faith in that again? So you should highlight that as well. You should tell them. You should tell the people. We've been in that story. We've been in this situation already. We don't
Yeah.
want to make mistakes from our history.
Hmm.
History is there to teach us exactly why we should do stuff differently. And so we have the power to choose three options: the government that was before, a new Islamic government, or a third option, an
Hmm.
economic government, and a
Hmm.
government who thinks about the people. You have Yunus right now, as I'm
Yeah.
reading about him. The guy made an idea that it was so inspiring that 57 countries are using that idea right now. 58, sorry, 58. United States, Canada, France, Holland, and Norway are using that economic idea of microcredits.
Hmm.
He implemented it. He's 84 years old, and I know he's not as young as Joe Biden, but it's still, still,
Yeah,
he can lead us away from this threshold,
absolutely,
from
absolutely.
this maniacal ideology that is trying to put ideas that will destruct, that will disrupt the way of life.
Yeah. No, but you know, that's not the problem we're facing right now. People aren't against Eunice. From where I'm standing, people across the aisle are, yes, yeah, Eunice is great. That's great.
Hmm.
Wonderful.
Hmm.
The problem we're facing is Awami League was like they were in power for 15 years, and they, like I said, they like stretched out their arms across every sector, and people are out for blood now because Awami League spilled a lot of blood. People are out for blood for like people basically want revenge right now. A lot of people want revenge. They want everyone and everything remotely related to Awami League to die, essentially, a lot of people. And this is not like some like violent insurgent saying this, like a crazy person shouting at the clouds. This is a lot of educated, secular, progressive people are also out for blood. And like that anger is justified to a large extent, but that's the thing we're forgetting is like we got rid of Al League because they spilled blood. And now people are out for blood again. Like people are publishing lists online. People are publishing yeah, basically like lists of people who should be arrested next, or who should like be basically like targeted by a mob next. That kind of a rhetoric is like gaining traction, and that is not, again, like we're falling into the same like traps that we always fall into in these countries with poor education, with people's like incapacity for nuance and like we have very short-term memories. I think like we're basically like
Everyone,
repeating, all of us, we're
all of us.
repeating the same mentality, the same, because Army League did this. This is part of the thing we were mad at Army League for. They came to power and then they started jailing opposition leaders. They started jailing like lawyers, senior like professors, journalists, whatever. Anybody who was remotely, who had said one nice thing about the Bangladesh Nationalist Party or Jamaat Islami, they jailed those people, or they yeah, some of them disappeared from their homes. Some of them just like
Wow.
disappeared. Yeah, and some of them like were found yesterday. They were Some of them got released yesterday. For a lot of those families, they had performed the janaza, they had performed the prayer, that they thought their father was dead, they thought their husband was dead, but they came back yesterday. So that's what the Awami League did, and that is one of the biggest reasons people were fed up with the Awami League, that you're anybody who talks against you, you jail them or you kill them or you make them disappear. But now we're asking for the same thing for people who said one nice thing about Army League, like in those 15 years. And yeah, so that's where we are. Can it become a civil war? I think in this moment, unlikely. People across the board seem to like Eunice. Where it might be risking civil war is if Eunice talks too secularly. then like the Islamic fundamentalists, they won't be satisfied with him anymore. I think that is my prediction. But I think Yunus is a smart man. I think he will avoid falling into those traps, hopefully. But yeah, Roy, what you were saying. What were you saying? I forgot. Oh yeah, then like we should focus on what is like the problem at hand, and we should act rationally and like rely on facts. That is the other problem. Misinformation is rampant in Bangladesh on social media right now. So what happened is under the Awami League government, under the Digital Security Act, the news media, broadcast news media were heavily censored. They basically had to repeat government propaganda talking points. Like, otherwise, they get shut down. That was the environment that they were operating in. So everyone started relying on social media for their news because the like broadcast news were repeating nonsense. So yeah, everyone started relying on social media for their news, and obviously opportunistic people took advantage of that to spread blatantly false like bullshit, including, and which is still going on. We're still reeling with the effects of it because there's a like buzz around the air in Bangladesh and in the diaspora that India's intelligence agency, was helping Sheikh Hasina kill all those people that like her under her the police killed in this movement, all those people who were killed, all those people who were arrested, whatever. There's this thing floating around that Raw helped do that, and that there are Indian police officers, Indian military officers on the streets, on the ground in Bangladesh, fighting alongside Bangladeshi police, fighting alongside Bangladeshi military. Now, as far as I can tell, the only source for this, it comes from like the oldest source for this comes from a video where someone is speaking and the audio is very bad quality. The audio is very bad quality. It's noisy and it's dark out. You can't see their lips moving. It sounds like the person is like they're talking to somebody else. It's like a person in a uniform. They're talking to someone else, and it sounds like they're speaking Hindi. And they're like beating somebody up. They're beating up a protester, and they're speaking Hindi. That's what it sounds like. Now, here's the problem. All South Asian languages are very similar. And in like poor quality audio and where nothing is clear, like that is not evidence. That is not like, and first of all, even if it was a person speaking Hindi, that is not enough to conclude India's RAW is involved or the Indian military is involved. But that thing spread like wildfire. That video, that thing spread like wildfire, and then subsequent social media posts on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter about like raw, like look up Bangladesh raw and you'll see like thousands of posts on Facebook. And right now I think people are countering that. A lot of people understand that that was misinformation,
Hmm.
but like that perception is there. They understand that, okay, this particular rumor about Raw, that Raw is in this city at this time beating this person, this particular rumor is false, but they still think because it's been ingrained in our psyche, because we've been hearing it for like 2 3 weeks, they still think Raw is involved somehow. They just think, okay, this particular incident was falsified, but Raw is involved. But there, again, the only evidence is that video. Like that's the oldest existing evidence as far as I can tell. So like this is how misinformation spreads, right? Like you get one thing and then it just spreads like wildfire, especially in a country like Bangladesh where like media literacy is lacking. Media literacy, like how to spot misinformation, how to spot fact from fiction.
Yeah, but
And
I think that's a problem that we are facing in our global society right now,
yeah,
all
so
over the
that's a problem
world.
we're facing globally. And
Yeah.
another thing with Bangladeshi, like I want to say people who lean slightly more conservative, people who are slightly more Muslim minded, slightly more conservative, and that is most of the population, they harbor a lot of them harbor a sort of natural animosity towards India because India has like Hindu nationalists who persecute Muslims. So India has Hindu nationalists who persecute Muslims. So a lot of Muslims in Bangladesh, they hate India and the Indian government. And like the idea of raw involvement is like very, very scandalous. And it's very, very electrifying for like a lot of these people. It like brings up all of their anger. So and at some point it doesn't matter if it's true or not, because you're feeling anger and when you're feeling that kind of anger, like the truth doesn't matter.
Sure, it's not, it doesn't matter. And wait, let's see. So it's very worrisome that they can rile up Bangladeshi anti-India sentiment to provide
Yeah.
arguments for Islamist rule. Of course,
Yeah.
but I think that's, again, like I said before, it's if I knew how to fight disinformation and misinformation, I would be, the king of Israeli media, because right now
Yeah.
this is exactly what we're fighting. And
Yeah.
we are a democracy yet still, but still we have a lot of people from around the world saying shit about us, and which is, you know, untrue or factually or remotely or whatever. And so I think this is why we still need to concern ourselves with what we are saying, what we believe is our movement, and what we believe is our truth. If people confront us with those kind of accusation, people confront us with this kind of disinformation, we need to do two things. Either say, we don't know, we'll check and we'll see if it's true or not. Second thing is say, it is not true because I checked and I see it's not true.
Yeah.
Or third, we'll say, it's true, and sorry about that. And we'll say, yeah, it's true, and we'll deal with it. We'll deal with it because that's what we do. But we still cannot take to the streets and do the same thing that Sheikh, what's her name? Sheikh Malika
Hasina.
Hasina, Sheikh
Yeah.
Hasina, yeah, what she did. Because in the
Mm-hmm.
end, we are not better than her. We are
Yeah.
not better than what she has done.
Yeah.
And so we need to take aside, we need to put aside all those stuff, all those background noises, because that's the thing. We need to
Mm.
speak as loud as we can, as most people as possible who can speak out and say the same thing. We need to, there's a reason why Islamists are very strong on social media, and it's because
Mm-hmm.
they are a hive mind. They have
Yeah, yeah. They
no,
repeat each other's. Yeah.
exactly,
They're.
they say
Yeah.
exactly the same stuff. They
Yep.
know, they don't have a real sense of self. They don't have a sense of self. They don't care about themselves. They have a higher purpose, which is
Yeah.
fine
Yeah.
if it's
Absolutely.
so. And I think we need to establish a kind of secular mindset, again, not in a dangerous kind of sense. I'm saying that we need to say the same thing, we need to repeat the same stuff, we need to show support one to another, not diminish one another, not diminish another group because we're thinking that they're a little bit more left, I think they're more right wing. No, we need to be establishing a forefront against all
Mm-hmm.
of those people that we know they're going to be a threat. They're not going to be, they are a threat
They
to our
are a threat. Yeah.
democracy. They're a threat to our society. And so we
Mm-hmm.
need to show a front of a very clear message. And even if it's a stupid hashtag, free Bangladesh, maybe that's gonna, I don't know. It works for another group. I won't say that group, but just saying. But it's, we need to find a catchy phrase. We need to find a hashtag. We need to find, and I'm saying it, it's so stupid to say it, but it works. Right
It
now, it
works. Yeah.
works.
Yeah. 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 No, you're absolutely right. And yeah, you've hit the nail on the hammer, like hammer on the nail, nail on the hammer, whatever. I forgot the saying.
Hammer
Anyway,
on
but
the
yeah, you're
nail on the
you're
hammer on the head.
exactly right, is what I'm saying. You're exactly right about like the thing, yeah, that like Islamists are hive-minded and they repeat each other's words so much. And this is how I say this as like as someone who studied this, is the human mind is it's very easy to bend it. Like if we hear something enough times, it starts sounding like the truth. Like it's easy to brainwash people that way. That's why propaganda is so powerful. If you hear something enough times, it sounds like, okay, it's coming from so many sources, so many different like sources are saying the same thing. It must be true. That is where like secular or like or like religious or progressive people of all kinds, that's where we go wrong, because we are like we have more nuance in us and we're okay with disagreeing with each other. That's why we call each other out on, okay, you're not like good enough, you're not left enough, you're not right enough, you're not progressive enough, whatever. That's the mistake we made, like we make in some ways, like because we're, and this is going to sound so elitist, but because we're a little more evolved and we're able to have conversation and we're able to disagree with each other, that's where our like unity falls apart. And so like it's easier for insurgents to claim, oh look, they don't even agree with each other, they don't know what they stand for, they all stand for different things, they all have different priorities. Yeah. Whereas they have one singular purpose and it's easy to show unity and it's easy to show brotherhood and all of that.
Exactly. And this is also one thing that I see Islamics, Islamic imams or very like religious people from that side that are preaching, that are saying, look, this is what they're doing. They're doing drugs, they're doing fornication, they're doing, look at all those bad stuff that they're doing. And we are one. We are one with God. We are the fact that we have the choice of what to do. This is our power. They try to think and they try to show as though as choice is a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Choice is always a good thing. Choice is always a preferable outcome. You don't
Yeah.
want to have a minimal kind of options in life. I mean, in a personal kind of sense, right? You
Yeah.
want to have as much options open for you as possible. It's
Yeah.
scary. Choice is scary. One of my um my literature, sorry, my literature teacher told us that uh freedom is the most scary thing for human beings. This is the not death, not oppression. Freedom is the most scary thing, and we're seeing it today because we're seeing that the um the more options you have, the more stuff that you can do. It it makes you feel a little bit overwhelmed and over um, kind of oppressing yourself with choices. And you're saying, "What should I do? What should I do? I can be a doctor. I can be this. I can be that." And I don't know what should I do. I don't know what life should I lead. And so, but just because it's scary, it doesn't mean it's not the best outcome that can be. What is the
Yes.
other outcome? Do you want to live under oppression? Do you want to live under silenced media, silenced social media? You can't. It's not what you want. It's not what is preferable. And so even we're speaking in a very philosophical way, saying it's just right now, and I don't know what will happen in 200 years, but still, the outcome that we want is choice. And so right now, the Bangladeshi people have a choice, and they know that their choice of government, their choice of leadership can lead them to either more choices or
Yeah.
less choices. This is also very very important to highlight, because in the end, if you are Islamic, if you are religious, this is fine, this is okay, you do
Mhm.
you. But if you have other people, other minorities, other groups who are going to share the land, they're going to share the vision of this society with you, if you're thinking ahead, you cannot oppress them and think that it's going to be okay in the in the far future.
Mhm. I agree with everything you said, but you know what? There's one problem, and it's a big problem. Everything you said makes sense to me because I care about choices, because I care about my freedom, because I care about my independence. For a large, I would say the vast majority of this country, including that like big third group that I talked about, who are like the most influential voters, a lot of them are low income and they uh, grew up in madrasas, they grew up in hearing sermons from mosques. And there, it's ingrained in a lot of them from a young age that this life doesn't matter. What matters is the afterlife. What matters is God's way. So the thing that they should rationally care about is whether they put food on the table or not, whether they're feeding their family or not. And a lot of them do care about that. They have to care about that. There's this survival as human, that's human instinct. But a lot of them, like, it's the argument that we're gonna make with like the practical argument, like these people are not gonna feed your belly. Like you should care about feeding your belly. That is a very practical argument, and it's over in like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
The way Islamic fundamentalists, they have been influencing these people pretty much since birth. And they're doing it more strongly now. Like I'm seeing posts on Facebook, and Facebook is basically like everybody uses it in Bangladesh, like all social classes use it in Bangladesh, and I'm seeing posts that are openly saying we need to establish a caliphate, an Islamic caliphate here. We need to, our ruler will be a man, and like we will have an Islamic constitution, that kind of a language. And those are just like, I would say those are milder examples because those are what they're willing to say on social media in public. What they say in those sermons that they give in like rural parts of Bangladesh where they don't get much media coverage. Because like Facebook, if you put something out there, like secular people, progressive people will see it and they will make fun of you or they will attack you for your like lack of logic. No one is there to attack them for their lack of logic when they're on those mics in rural Bangladesh. And they can influence people by the thousands. And oh, that is the other barrier. One, like I'm describing two different problems to you. Like the logic that you're explaining to me, it's very hard to sell it to them because a lot of them are conditioned to like shove logic away from childhood. That is one problem. Another problem is me, my voice. People like me. Most people like me tend to be middle class. Like I'm saying, like people who would understand your logic. Most people who would sympathize with your logic, who would understand your logic, are like middle class and up, educated. Our voice will never reach where it needs to reach. And that is our fault. That is our fault. We're the more privileged group in this equation. And I think we've done a very bad job of looking down on like low income Bangladeshis for generations. Like our kind looks down on their kind. And yeah, there's a like the class system in Bangladesh is, I don't think it's like, it's hard to describe to someone who doesn't live there. Like you're just not the same people. And that's very, very unfortunate. And that is, it's the fault of the more privileged classes. The more
Mhm.
privileged classes have like shunned away their low income counterparts so much that like they can't relate to us, we can't relate to them. There's a like invisible barrier between us that we cannot break, that's like very hard to break. So
Very hard, but it's not,
yeah, it's not impossible, it's just
it's
it
not
would have to be
impossible.
like, it would have to be like on the ground work, it would have to be, and some people are doing it, some people are doing it, like some organizations are on the ground doing good work, but yeah, they're like very small organizations and I hope they get far. Uh, mhm,
It is true that in the end, we need to be very careful about choosing who is the villain in this scenario. And
mhm.
like Aris is saying, that we need to be very, very careful if people will try to hijack it is not just as an Islamic
Mhm.
revolution, but also us versus them kind of a revolution of the middle, or like the lower class against the middle and the higher class.
That is less risky because like these Islamic fundamentalists, they're also capitalists in their hearts.
I get
They
it.
want money. They want money to line their pockets. That is, I think there's less risk of that. It's more of an ideological warfare. That's what I was trying to explain to you guys in my previous interview, is our left versus right looks very different from what left versus right is understood as by like Western definitions. Our biggest challenge, like since the birth of this nation, uh, yeah, it's like it's just completely different. Um, part of a big part of the reason Bangladesh broke away from Pakistan in 1971 is that was like what we call Molovat, which means Islamicism. Islamicism, like oppressive Islamicism of of women, of minorities, that kind of a thing. So that is ingrained in us. And there was a big chunk of the population even then who opposed leaving Pakistan. There was a lot of they weren't the majority. They were very much a minority, but they were, and not an insignificant group. They were a significant group who opposed leaving Pakistan because they were in favor of Islamicism. So that divide between secular and Islamist, we've lived with it since the birth of this nation. We've wrestled with it since the birth of this nation.
So maybe leaning on to that isn't a bad thing on its own. I'm saying, if you are saying that those very Islamic fundamentalists are very, you know, money hungry capitalists, maybe that's also something that you should uh, highlight. Maybe it will even be better for the movement to highlight it and say, economically, it's not going to be better under them because they are going to take away all the money from the poor, from you guys.
Yeah.
And so, if you want to have a better society, a better status in living, a change, a better change, because in the end, I think that economically speaking, it's going to be beneficial for everybody if there's
Mhm.
going to be a less divide between classes. And so,
Absolutely.
so uh, you know, I hope that it will be like that, but
Mhm.
at least we should try to achieve it, or try to I don't know how to say it, to forgot the name, I forgot the word, uh to preach it, we need to
Yeah.
preach it, we need to say that those people are not going to help you economically. Those people are money hungry, power grabbing, fundamentalist ideology fanatics. Okay, don't use those big words if those are not, I don't know, I just say to them, they are not your answer, because they are
Mhm.
exactly opposing to your values. They're opposing for what they
Yes.
you stand for. You want to be out of this class? Okay, let's do it
Yeah.
together. Let's do
Yeah.
it together.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And that is kind of what I said in those texts to Aries too, is that the risk that Hasina hadn't fallen back then when we spoke. Like when I shared those messages, the government hadn't fallen yet. And I was saying in those texts is that is the problem with countries like this. We're often in a lose-lose situation. Like if Hasina stays, we deal with her fascist, undemocratic activities. But if she falls, the most likely alternative is also a fascist and undemocratic who steals from like the people of the country. But they add an added layer of like extremist oppression of women and minorities. So that is the point that we need to get across to everyone in the country. And it's very hard to do because so many people associate Islam with good, not Islam with bad. Automatically, like that is just an ingrained association in your brain, and it's very hard to get rid of. And to some extent, even now, I find myself, I struggle with that too, even though I was never very religious. I never grew up in a very, but like it's everywhere. So I struggle with that association too. So all of your ideas are great ideas, and that is what people are doing. That is what I've been doing. That is what a lot of the people who are much more active than I am doing it only from like a wordsmith kind of way. A lot of people are doing on the ground work, trying to reach communities that are hard to reach. A lot of people are doing it, but these like the thing is, the revolution was wonderful. The revolution is great. Yeah, like we got like a fascist dictator down in like a couple of weeks. That's a big achievement, very big achievement. What couldn't be done in 15 years, like we did in like a few weeks. That's like massive. But you can't undo Islamic indoctrination in 2 weeks. Like years and decades of indoctrination you can't undo in 2 weeks. That's the like second part of the problem that we're dealing with. Like the first challenge was like getting rid of an undemocratic government. The second challenge is, okay, how do you like in this vulnerable moment, how do you convince like a population of 17 crore people, 170 million, 170 million people, how do you convince 170 million people to make the right decision when so many of us are poor, undereducated, over Islamicized? And like it's just, and not just like one generation, this has been happening for generations, like you get this, so it's hard to undo that, but people are doing their best. I think like Yunus's the selection of Yunus as the advisor to the interim government was the right move.
Mm-hmm.
And so far people seem pleased with him, and he seems like a decent person. And the interim government is going to be for 3 to 6 years. And I think that's a good timeline. I think that's a decent timeline. 3 to 6 years is a good amount of time for things to settle down. And for the people who are doing this on the ground work of trying to explain to people, you don't want Islamic fundamentalism. It's not that you're like these liberal, privileged women who want to wear crop tops. Don't do it for them. Don't do it for you. You don't want Islamic fundamentalism. It won't be good for you either, because that is the rhetoric. That is a big part of the rhetoric that Islamic fundamentalists use is, oh, it's just like women who are sluts. They're the ones, or like gay people, like these like horrible gay people, or these horrible women who are sluts. They're the ones who are against us. And the work that we need to do in the next 3 to 6 years is trying to explain to everybody, no, this will be bad for everyone. It's not just for the sluts and for the gays. It'll be bad for you. It'll be bad for everybody. And that is the work that we need to do over the next 3 to 6 years. And like, and I think we can do it if I'm being optimistic. What I'm concerned about is like, yeah, is that like mob mentality, that like revenge mentality. And yeah, that's our most like short-term concern. That is our short-term concern. And our long-term concern is like undoing that Islamic indoctrination, which is a bigger project. Our short-term concern is trying to like keep people calm and tell them you can't be the thing that we just fought. That's a very good question. How is the attitude of most secular pro-revolution people to Islamists? Are they now thinking that Islamists can be their ally? Because it could be super hard if criticizing Islam and Islamists sabotage killings becomes a taboo, just because Islam is the majority religion, as your concern is. I met such people. Okay, yeah, that's a very good question. That is like Yeah, that is another big challenge that we're dealing with. Not this is not everybody. Again, like because this revolution, this movement was so large, it was joined by people of all from all walks of life, all ages, all professions, all like socioeconomic classes. And that's a wonderful thing. Like that kind of unity is a very good thing. What we're seeing now, what I'm seeing now, and part of what is bothering me is a lot of my secular, liberal, progressive friends who were pro-revolution, as was I, they're now they're saying they want to hold on to that unity. They're basically saying we shouldn't, a lot of them, some of them, we shouldn't criticize Islamists just yet because we need to hold on to that unity. And I understand that argument. But a lot of them were saying it yesterday in the face of like those Hindu massacres, in the face of like Hindu temples burning, in the face of Hindu homes burning. And I just, I think I don't know where I'm trying to go with this. What was the question? What is the attitude of pro-revolution people to Islamists? It's just, it varies. I think the answer I'm trying to tell you is that it varies. Like it's a spectrum. Like many of us, and like again, like these secular pro-revolution people, we all belong to different religious groups too. Like some of us are atheists, some of us are liberal Muslims, some of us are Hindu, some of us are Buddhist, some of us are Catholic. We're all kind of a little bit divided on where we stand on the issue of Islamic fundamentalism. Some of us are like, we shouldn't even talk about it. We shouldn't even discuss the risk of it. If you discuss the risk of it, we give them more airtime. We give them more attention. Some of us who are more on the Muslim side, who are like liberal Muslims or like even, yeah, like just like Muslims, they think some of them are saying, would it be such a bad thing? Some of them have gone to that direction. Would it be such a bad thing if it
Oh
happened?
my God.
Yeah. So like, so that is the risk is people, because I don't know if you know, the movement was officially called বৈষম্য বিরোধী ছাত্র আন্দোলন, which translates to anti-discrimination student movement. It started out as an anti-discrimination movement for those job quotas, but anti-discrimination means anti-discrimination of all kinds, right? And some of us are already like turning back on that aim. Some of us are already like, would it be so bad if Islamists took over?
It came to this point was because she and her government had an appeasement to the Islamists, right? And she built like 500 mosques and madrasas, and you told me about that. And the corruption, like the things, the government got corrupted and got bad almost the same time she did this. Like, what I want to say is that can we see this revolution as a part of a greater time span? Like I read a bit of the Bangladeshi history, that because it was colonized, it was occupied by Pakistan before 1971, and Pakistan was a country that, based on actually built upon the Islamic ideal, and everything must be Islamic. And the station is like we talked with Roshan before. That Pakistan is a country. Even its capital is named the city of Islam. And it's a very very Islamic ideologically driven nation. The Bangladesh independence, I guess it from this perspective, is just the will of Bangladeshi people to be separated from that kind of Islamic ideal, that we do not want our country to be colonized in this way, by the, in the same way as Pakistan is. And I think Islam as a religion plays a very, very big role here. It's just like Bangladeshi people kept being Muslim, but they're not as Muslims quote, a Muslim as the Pakistani people are, because they choose a different way of life in the during the War of Independence. Hence, and then later on, you said Hasina was a daughter of the leader of the War of Independence, right? And yes, and
Mother
that
of the
was.
nation.
I think for me, when I was reading, I also reading the Bangladeshi history today. I think it's the very big, like a symbolic thing, that this nation is based on a resistance against the Islamic ideal, the Islamic ideology. And now, I hope I was wrong, but it seems like this revolution is a chance, like, for the Islamic ideal to revive, to be resurrected.
Yes.
And this is
It can always be
it is
that
not
way.
can be that way. It's the topic.
Yeah.
The theme of this
No, of
revolution,
course.
if I put it this way.
Mhm.
It's not just like
Yeah.
it can go wrong, but this revolution is in itself, against Hasina's government. It can be like against his appeasement or collaboration with Islamists. But now it seems like this topic is out of discussion. It's out of discussion. People are not rioting because she was collaborating with Islamists. People were rioting
No.
because
It's not.
she
Yeah.
like people like this reason is now being mistaken, and this is the biggest
No, but I think
risk that I see from this current situation.
yeah, but I think you need to understand that we are still talking about a country where the majority is Muslim.
Is Muslim. And let me interject. I'm sorry. Here's another piece of factoid, which I'm not sure if you guys know or not. So yes, you're right. Bangladesh separated from Pakistan for many reasons. They were like, we were like basically second-class citizens under them, and like, we weren't like economically we were doing poorly. Just like, and we wanted a secular constitution. That is, and we got a secular constitution. That was part of why we separated from Pakistan. It wasn't the biggest part. The biggest part was that we were second class citizens. But yes, we wanted a secular constitution. We did not want to live under Pakistan. And we wanted to speak our own language. Pakistan wanted us to speak Urdu. We wanted to continue speaking Bengali. So many factors. Now, in 2024, what has happened is, and here's a little bit more background. Hasina, in these 15 years, like I said, with taxpayer money, she put up a lot of sculptures and paintings of her father all over the country. And she, like, basically to justify her 15-year rule, she like continued invoking the spirit of 1971, the spirit of the Liberation War again and again. That like secular spirit. She kept using it as a talking point for her fascist regime, like to continue her fascist regime, to like she basically used that spirit of secularism. You can put it like that. People have heard those things so much. People have heard the name of her father, have seen the face of her father, have heard the words spirit of the Liberation War so much. People are fucking tired of it. That is another factor. So now, when she fell, like one of the first things, not everybody, but one of the first things that a lot of the rioters, protesters did when the day she fell was like tear down statues, tear down paintings of her father. And some of them set fire to her father's house where he was killed in Dhanmondi 32, which is not, it's not just like someone's house, it's a piece of our history. It was a museum. They set fire to it because they hated Hasina so much, and they hated her rhetoric and her 15-year rule so much that, and you can argue I mean, and maybe this is even true to some extent, that maybe the people who burned her father's house, or maybe the people who tore down Sheikh Mujib's statues, maybe some of them were directly against her politically. Maybe they weren't like regular old students protesting against anti-discrimination. And I think there is some truth to that. These people they might be politically motivated. They might be affiliated with her opposition. That might be true, but that doesn't matter. Like, what matters is like there's a general feeling of resentment towards her father, towards the spirit of 1971, because of how much she overused
secularism
those
as well.
things. The word secularism as well, because of how much she overused those things. And another thing she did in this July movement and over the past 15 years, anytime she did not like something, she or her, someone in her party, anytime they did not like something that someone said against them, they would label them Jamaat Shibir,
Okay.
even though they had no like known association with Jamaat Shibir. They are the Awami League, the party would label people as Jamaat Shibir, as Islamic insurgents, for simply being against like something, a policy that Awami League had. And they can be
Oh my
like,
gosh.
they can belong to any religion. I have friends who are Hindu
Oh my
who've
gosh.
been labeled as Jamaat Shibir. So like that is a tactic that they used to keep their revolution alive. And this is again why I told you she brought this on herself. Like these are the mistakes that she made over the 15 years, like overusing the spirit of 1971, the spirit of the Liberation War, the spirit of my father, the legacy of my father. All before all of this, nobody, like, people liked her father. People really, really liked her father, and most of us still, most of the country still does. But like another thing happened in this movement, and I don't know how true this is. Some of the people that were Hasina's oppositions, some of them Jamaat Shibir, some of them not Jamaat Shibir, they, some of them wrote books which are banned in Bangladesh, but you can get them outside the country, where they wrote about 1971 and like the rule of her
Yes.
father, the rule of her father, and like how the country became independent and what happened in the first government of the country, the first government under her father. And they wrote things in those books that say that he wasn't the saint that we know him as, like the father of the nation, the person who liberated our country. So now I don't know how true they are. They might be writing out of spite for Hasina because she exiled them out of the country. She called them Jamaat Shibir even though they weren't Jamaat Shibir. Maybe they wrote falsely because they hated her. I don't know. Or maybe they wrote accurate information. I don't know. Like you can't know these things. They're just books. And it's very hard to like fact check when like the country is so new and different governments in this country since the birth of this nation. Every government has come in and they've made revisions to like school textbooks to like basically like everyone has altered history so much we don't know what the real history is anymore. So the thing that you're arguing that like an Islamic revolution would be against the spirit of the country, you're right, the spirit that the country was founded on, you're right according to the history that I grew up reading. But this July, a lot of people are arguing, and some of them are Jamaat Shibir, some of them are ordinary people. A lot of people are arguing the history that you know
It's
and
completely false.
read your whole life. It it's like, yeah, it's really like all kinds of like,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
it might be misinformation mixed in, it might be over exaggerated. It's all of that. So it's so complicated now. Like there was a time it was black and white, like the spirit of revolution, the spirit of secularism, the spirit of liberation, all of that, versus the spirit of like conservatism, the spirit of like all of that, like Islamicism. Now that line's getting blurred and people are starting to find out truth or fiction, I don't know, about like wrongdoings by her father, that kind of a thing. So like we can't argue that anymore. We can't argue the spirit of secularism, spirit
Okay.
of liberation anymore.
I think it's coming back to the conversation of misinformation and disinformation also, and
Yeah.
about revisionist history that also happens here about Israel and Palestine. Everybody's an expert about the situation in the history, but and still nobody really knows what happened, like exactly,
Yeah.
like we know, but other people who talk about that doesn't know. But
Mm.
still, I think that this is why we maybe should again focus about the progress and less about the vengeance and the history. Because
Yeah.
if you don't know the history very much, or again, you don't want to go to get caught up in this kind of sinkhole of disinformation and questions that you cannot answer.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the stuff that you can answer with, and this is about what is going to happen next and what we want to happen next. And
And
so it's
and as
very, yeah,
you know,
sorry.
sorry, but from my observation and from what I've heard you saying, it's so dangerous. It's for me. I'm so alarmed by that because it seems that um, Hasina is absolutely abusing or taking advantage of secularism, right? Of this idea of this whole history of
Yes.
liberation. She abused this idea
Yeah.
to become the fundamental thing for the legitimacy for her regime. Then the people begin to be against this and be denying the whole legitimacy of the war of independence, the secular value itself. And I find it super dangerous because this and in this time point, this point of, you said it's a very delicate time, and I agree with it, because
Mhm.
now this country seems on a crossroad to two different ways. One is that people understand that the war of liberation was a real thing, and the secularism was a real ideal that the Bangladeshi people had fought for, instead of just think it's a complete propaganda. But like people can say that it's a Hasina's regime that betrayed this ideal, that betrayed everything her father had done, and then make this country less Islamic, make this country have a further step, like how Islam has a place in our country, then our goal of liberation hadn't finished yet, and we have to go on the next step. And then another direction, which is completely denying the ideal of secularism and go back to the colonized state before 1971. And, even to the worst, even to the worst situation, even worse than Pakistan, because people were now, like people who have had freedom, obviously, if they leave freedom and choose slavery again, and they will fall in a far more miserable state. And now what I see happening is that people are not like, and also I see that you two are talking about is not like, it, it's not on the point that which is to make clear that we should hold on this ideal which the Bangladeshi people had fought for like decades ago. But like our point should not be like we make no one uncomfortable. We should have to make people uncomfortable sometimes because they because they are not focusing on what should be focused on, and they're saying things to cancel the core value of this nation. And the core values of nation, oh, okay, it first cancelled by Hasina herself, right? And her regime. And now being cancelled the second time by the protesters, by the revolution, by the people who are against her regime. And this is what I see is the most dangerous thing. And I wonder is if the Bangladeshi people can get it through, but from what I have seen, people are not at that point yet.
I don't know. I think we should look at it as a tug of war. When you have like two sides tugging the same rope. I think this is the vision that we need to see, because no side think of himself as the bad side, right? Like every side thinks they are right and that they need to have the rope to themselves. And so everybody, and it's always like that in every country. It's not just like, you know, Bangladesh. It's like in every country you have the right and the left, the far right and the far left. But it's always tugging to who is going to be in more control. And right now in Bangladesh, this situation is critical. And I agree with you that we need to dim down those voices who are very, very anti-democratic. And I think this is what we need to say. We need to, I know what our stance. We have a very, very clear stance about religion in general, or even, you know, specifically about the Islamic religion. That being said, most people in Bangladesh are not her. Most people in Bangladesh don't have her secular kind of view. And so if you want to reach those people, you cannot do it by diminishing their idea or diminishing their view, because they are still a big chunk of them are Muslims.
They're the majority.
They're the
They're
majority.
the majority. Yeah.
And so we need to be focusing about what is, you know, uniting us. I want food, you want food, everybody wants food, right?
Mhm.
This is something that is established as a person, as an animal.
But I
even,
thought
you
then
know, everybody
actually,
needs
I
food.
thought that this could
And so
be the thing that uniting everyone, because at some point,
You're
people care more
yeah.
about their identity, about about their honor, so to say, more than food. And sometimes, they have the illusions that this honor can bring them food, even, you know.
Yeah, they do. You're both right in several ways, and that's why I'm arguing on like both fronts. Is like you're both right. Like Roy is right that we can't, like, if I tell them like I don't want Islamic fundamentalism because I want bodily autonomy, or I am and I support same-sex relationships, they're gonna kill me. And then like at the same time, Aries, you're right that like it doesn't, no matter how much I tell them about economic progress or like putting food on the table, if someone else is telling them, you don't need to care about this life, what you need to care about is the afterlife, and you need to be on our side, we are the side of God, because they've had that religious indoctrination since childhood, that might be more powerful to them than my practical advice of care about your own belly. They might care about that more because their brains are wired that way. So you're both right. And that is the issue that we're dealing with. Like, and that's why I said, like, the rise of Islamic fundamentalism is the risk of Islamic fundamentalism is higher in Bangladesh right now compared to Iran in the late 70s, because Iran's average person then and now was more educated, more secular minded. Our average person is poor, undereducated, very religious. And it's very easy to influence the votes of someone vulnerable like that with false promises of you'll be happy in the afterlife.
but if we'll think about the Iranian Revolution, the
Mhm.
reason that the Iranian Revolution started, it was because of economy.
It
was
was
because of
it was legitimate reasons. That's what this revolution started for as well, like economic reasons. Like people wanted jobs.
exactly.
People
So
wanted
and so we need to be very focused, and I
yeah.
agree with Aries that we need to be
Mhm.
very careful that this movement isn't going to be hijacked the same
Mhm.
way as the Iranian Revolution was hijacked to be a religious issue. And so this is why I think we need to
Yeah.
distance ourselves from the religious issue,
Yeah.
and focus about the economic issue. Because if that was
Yeah.
if that was the case, if that's the case, that we have Hasina, who was a dictator, who was, doesn't matter what her religion was, she was a
Yeah.
dictator. She was putting her political rivals in jail, people who
Yes.
didn't see her family for 8 years which is freaking crazy. This is the points we need to make. This is the points we need to establish. Is it going to help? Is it going to be the right answer? I don't know. But I
But
think
it's the only answer we have right now. That's the only like path we
exactly.
have, is to argue like with a straight mindset of like straight practical logic of, you want to put food on your table, care about that. You should care about that. That is the
And
thing
it's
that you
like
should focus on.
Yes.
I don't know, like have another idea of because I always fear that if another part of the population, the Islamist insurgents and their followers, are using religious arguments, and while we are using arguments like food and their belly, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a war on a different dimensions, and we, that is
I you're
what you
arguing
have
that
talked
like,
about, and I
no,
think
sorry, go
and I
ahead.
believe a state, a revolution, and like a thing like this is never only about food alone. It sounds also about religion, right? And this and
Yeah.
if they have the religion, if they have the Islamist ideal for this country, let this country become a part of the Caliphate. And why don't we have another religious ideal, which is not religious, but it's a secularist ideal that Bangladeshi people had sought for like decades ago, that, we still fight for this goal. Even Hasina betrayed that, right? Even his government went on the way to abuse that, to exploit that. And we're now still fighting for that goal against the Islamists. This is a warfare, on the same level. It is called an unequal war. And the Islamists are against us on an ideological level. And if we focus on money, if we focus on, on this kind of like people's lives, this is not on the same level. And I understand what you're saying, but people who focus on money and about their lives, they do not have so much ideal where I don't know, have the energy to fight a war against an ideological enemy. This is like two completely different kinds of armies. When there is a political struggle and people who fight for money, is like very likely, even they are 10 times, 100 times larger than the other group, is very likely to be beaten. That is the biggest fear
I
of
don't
mine
think, but
about also the government of Muhammad Yunus, that he cares about the people's lives, right? He's put ideological things aside, and care about how the income, also people.
but it's not true.
And
Income is in ideology. Income is an
and
ideology. And I think that's what we should also focus, because we need to say it's not about the money. It's about the lifestyle. Do you want to live in poverty? Do you want to, eat? You can tell them what it's like to be in
yeah,
North
it's a
Korea. People
result.
have
It's a
no,
result. Yes,
it's a result of, and so you need to establish that kind of
but
money-driven
it is
capitalist
the result. It's
idea
not the
as an
reason.
ideology. No, but people, if they're hungry, they will fight more than people who are
No, I don't believe
ideologically
that.
driven. Hungry people
Hungry
fight.
people.
Well, this is hungry people.
Like what I
That's what I
believe is
think.
that
That's what I
secularism,
think.
or the secularist ideal, if that is really implemented in Bangladesh, if it's really truly like believed by people and implemented in this country, it can bring money, it can bring food, it can bring everything.
I agree with you, but here's
Yeah,
where Roy's argument comes in: is we can't do that right now because like secular Bangladeshis are the minority. Secular Bangladeshis are a very small group, and like they, no matter how much you try to argue with or like try to like open the eyes of religious people and tell them, hey, look, secularism is more practical and it's going to be more equitable for all religions, and you still get to practice your religion. We also want religious minorities to practice their religion freely, and this will make everybody happy, and this will like open up trade relations, and we will like put more food on the table. It doesn't matter because their group is larger, and the ideas that they associate with secularism have been vilified violently by Islamic fundamentalists. Like, oh, it's just for sluts and gays. It's just for sluts and gays, and like we hate sluts and gays. Women should be under control, and gay people should die, and men should be like the dominant group. All of that. So we can't fight that. Like ideologically, you're right and they're wrong. And I'm saying this to you, like objectively, you're right and they're wrong. But you can't undo that in a day. And like because we're in a power vacuum, and and I think what you're arguing is Muhammad Yunus's like straightforward, I don't know, microfinance, money involved, money focused government might be weak in the face of Islamic insurgents. I think that's what you're arguing,
Yeah.
not to put like
Right,
words in your mouth. And
that's what I
maybe
mean.
like that is the risk. That is what you're arguing. Yeah, that it's weak in the face of like the violent ideology and the strength of the ideological strength of something as powerful as Islamic indoctrination. You might be right, and I think you are right. But like if we if we try to promote secularism right away, there's a chance like we like shun those people away from the outset. Like with Yunus's like let's say money focused or like microcredit focused approach. And I don't even know if that's gonna be his approach. He hasn't even started yet, you guys. We're just saying that because he's not an Islamic fundamentalist, and he's associated with microcredit. Anyway, let's say if that is his approach, at least it's a start. Because if we
Yes.
try to bring in like like another leader who prioritizes secularism and like religious harmony between Hindus and Muslims, he might be hated from the start. He or she might be hated from the start. And the other piece of that puzzle is the way Hasina overused the word secularism, overused the words spirit of 1971, the way she overused those things, people started associating secularism with her fascist regime.
It villainized
So,
secularism.
yeah, so right now, she has just left like one day ago. So, like, right now, people still hate her deeply. And if we try to if we try to bring in the same talking points that she used, even though we wouldn't be using it in like a nefarious way the way she did, she
Right.
used it to keep herself on power. If we use it to say, don't burn Hindu homes, or like, we need religious harmony to survive, even if we say it for the right reasons, people still have such a negative memory of that word, it might backfire. So I think like you're saying, like what Roy is recommending or what we think Yunus is going to do, it might be ineffective. It might be.
And
It might be. But that is our only option we have right now.
what can
That's the
Eunice
problem.
or what can this if we do not mention secularism, what can this thing, like everyone focus on money, prevent Hindu homes be burned?
Oh, the other thing about Hindu homes being burned, there are multiple theories on who did that. And part of the one theory is like Islamic fundamentalists did it because they got a free pass. Once the secular government fell, they got a free pass. Okay, we're gonna burn Hindu homes now. Another theory is that people affiliated with the former ruling party, like their student wing, like BCL, that like people affiliated with the former ruling party did this to prove the point that they were trying to make, that like, oh, like if Hasina falls, minorities die. That they did it themselves to prove that point
that's so
that they were
bad.
trying to make. That they want to come back to power, that they want to come back to power someday. And there is someone told me, a friend who like reads more about Bangladeshi politics than I do. He told me there is a provision in the constitution of Bangladesh that might allow Hasina to come in. So I like part of a theory about the Hindu homes burning is that Hasina's people are doing it so that Hasina can come back to it's like to show the population that see Hasina left and the next day Hindu homes burned down. You need Hasina back.
Oh, wow.
So that is one theory. Another theory is that Islamic insurgents did it. Another theory is just like what happened. It's not just that Hindu homes burned down yesterday, you guys. Like they looted general stores. They looted the prime minister's residence. They looted like just like Hindu homes as well. Like they looted it was just chaos yesterday. Everything got looted, everything got broken, everything like the streets were a mess. The third theory is it's just like angry mobs who are fucking crazy did it. So like but the theory that Hasina's people did it, that is I don't think it's completely nonsensical given how much they like power, given how much they want to stay in power. That is a possibility. I'm not saying which of these theories is correct because we don't know. There hasn't been investigations yet. We don't know. But like that is not impossible that Hasina's people did it. It's not
Okay,
impossible.
so, but it still goes down to what we were saying before about the nonviolent revolution. And
Yeah.
saying that if we are focusing about the way of how we're dealing with this revolution, and if we are trying to be as nonviolent and as united as much as we can about the same basic values that we want for each other, and saying if you don't want to have your house burned down, you don't want to have you don't want to burn somebody else's house, you don't want to loot someone's business, you don't want to be looted as well. So I think this is what, again, we need to speak out again and saying we have those core values, we will follow those core values, shit will happen, misinformation will spread, disinformation will spread. We will try as much as we can to focus on the positive, on the progress we're trying to make, and those who are violating the law will be punished. It doesn't matter what they are or what they're representing right now, because as much as it pains me to say, I don't want to see this revolution derailed again, like it happened before. And so we need to put that aside, and we need to show that we are united in the same idea of what we want to see. And nonviolence is the answer. Not saying nonviolence against Hindus, nonviolence against this kind of group. Nonviolence, period. And this is going to be the message. And I think as much as we are forthcoming, as much as we are clear about those kind of messages, and then after that, our next fight will be the Islamic insurgents in those populations. But this is a fight for another day. It's not we're saying that we're not going to fight for it. It's not like we're saying that we're leaving it to fester. But it is going to be, and that's the whole thing with society and democracy as a whole. It's always a Sisyphus kind of action of always pushing the boulder, always pushing the boulder up the hill. This is what we're going to do, and it's okay. But this is but one fight at a time.
Yeah.